So just by typing Rails new Listeroo, you've already created a functioning Rails app. To prove it to you, go ahead and type Rails server, or if you want, you can just type Rails S for short. They do the same thing. You should see this pop up. So if you see this or something like this, then that means that Rails is running successfully. You have a Rails server running on your computer. Also notice this thing about localhost 3000 in here. Go ahead and go to localhost 3000 in your browser. I'm using Chrome right now. You should see this. Yay, you're on Rails. This page that you see, it might look a little bit different depending on the version of Rails that you're using, but you'll see some sort of a splash screen. And so this lets you know that your Rails server is running successfully. So that's pretty cool. When you're typing Rails S, this server just keeps running continuously, and it's going to keep running in this terminal window. If you refresh the page, you'll notice that this changes. What you're seeing in here is each individual request to the server that's running on your computer. No one else can see this server. The server is just running on your computer, so you're not running a fully functional web page. It's just something, again, on your computer. But aside from that, it functions as a perfectly good server. So you can see that your computer is making requests to the server, and then it's responding with some HTML, some images, and a bunch of other stuff in here. Okay. Uh, so go ahead and leave this with Rails S running and open a new tab or a new window in Terminal. We're going to be doing some other stuff in here. I'm going to open this up in Atom. The first thing we're going to do in this next commit is we are going to create a different welcome screen. This one is all very nice, but this is sort of the generic Rails one. We want our own custom one. So we'll create sort of a custom Listeroo welcome screen. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this app folder. Let me close up some of these other folders that I had open. So I'm going to go into this app folder and then into this controllers folder. You may have heard that Rails runs as an MVC framework. Controllers, that's the C in MVC. We'll talk more about what that means later on. Go ahead in here and create a new file. It has to be right inside this controllers folder. So it's going to be at app/controllers, and then we're going to call it listscontroller.rb. Notice that lists is plural. It's not singular. This is going to be the controller for multiple lists. All right, every controller is going to start off and end pretty much the same way. The very first line is going to be something like class lists controller, whatever the name of this thing that we're dealing with here is. And then this bracket application controller. I'm not going to explain what this means right now. Every controller is going to look more or less like this. Then I'm going to add an index in here. That's because the very first page that we're going to show in this app is an index of all of the different lists that we have in this app. That is a list of lists, an index of lists. When someone looks at this page, I want them to see this code. Listeroo. Notice I'm just writing some HTML here. These are your lists. Nothing too complicated. To make this actually show up, in order to be able to get to this page, we need to set up a root for it. So you're going to go to this config folder and then this routes.rb file, and you're going to type root to lists index. So let me explain what's going on here. First off, root refers to what people should see when they go to localhost 3000. Localhost 3000 slash anything else after this, that's not your root. This is the root. It's the main, like the main page that people go to when they first look at your app. What we're saying right here is when someone goes to localhost 3000, that is when they go to the root URL, they should be taken to the lists controller and the index method in the lists controller. That is, they should be taken to whatever goes on in here. When I say taken to, what I mean is that what they should be shown is whatever is described by this code in here. So when someone goes to localhost 3000, I'm saying that they should be shown the text h1 listeroot, these are your lists. Let's see if it works. If you refresh this page or just go back to localhost 3000, you should see, look at that, listeroot, these are your lists. If you view the source code, the shortcut I'm using for this in Chrome is Command Option U, then you can see that this is exactly what I typed in here. I'll change it a little bit. I'll just write hello world, refresh the page, and there's hello world. And if I go and look at that rendered HTML, there it is right there. So again, what's going on here is this is saying when someone goes to localhost 3000, the root URL, they should be taken to the list controller and the index method inside that controller. If I change this to spatula, then I would also have to change this to spatula. But I'm not going to call it spatula. It doesn't make any sense. I'm going to go ahead with index. And here we go. And it shows me some HTML right here. All right, cool. So that's good enough for another commit. I'm going to go ahead and say that I am adding a root that shows the index of lists.